This is Uncharted, a series of candid conversations about facing uncertainty. When we are called upon to be courageous, the strength of our leadership is tested. Red Direction has developed the Fast Track Your Business program to help you stay aligned to your business's true north. Jess Dewell is your guide. Jess brings you a 20-year track record of business excellence where strategy and operations overlap. Your path comes from consistently working from this special place, your unique true north. Now, here's Jess.
Everybody, welcome. Welcome to the Bold Business Podcast. We have an Uncharted episode that is going to uncover all kinds of things that even I don't know yet. And these are the conversations that I like to have, like you, where you get to be a fly on the wall and hear this conversation. So also, for you Fast Track subscribers, don't forget you've got this whole program available to you. More about that later. Now, to get started in this concept of Uncharted, what are we doing here? We are having conversation to learn from each other so we don't have to make the same mistakes somebody else has if we don't want to. Or maybe we can increase our chances of not making the same mistake because we are armed with more information. So with me today is Irvin. He's a former CEO and COO. He helps leaders remove distractions so they can be intentional and lead fulfilled and meaningful lives. He has popular presentations that he does and trainings that offer structure and fun and best practices that are both thought-provoking, and they buck the age-old mentality of this is the way it's always been done. Can you see why I want him here now? We're both pot stirrers and we're both willing to call the kettle black. All right, too often we become uber focused on being busy and ultimately we lose sight of our goals. Dan's thoughts and ideas will get you back on track. And in addition to that, we're going to dig into his personal experience in those roles of CEO and COO in the past, aren't we, Dan? Oh, I'm so glad you're here today. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Thanks so much for the opportunity to connect. What your listeners didn't hear is our little before this, we were just kind of chatting, and I already know this is going to be a fantastic conversation. We're like-minded in so many ways, and so I'm excited to learn from you through this conversation as well. So looking forward to it.
Thanks, Dan. All right, well, I want to just jump right in. I know you faced, maybe one or two challenges, and I bet it was really hard to pick one to talk about with me today. But I want to know one that came to mind and that you led your company through because you've had to face some challenge and uncertainty.
Yeah, you're right. There were several ideas that came to mind of challenges. We've all had our fair share of challenges over the last 12 months. That's without a doubt. However, I was thinking of something that was maybe something that was more of a challenge in multiple roles that I've had. And what I thought of was really the reason why I was actually brought in to some of these various positions that I've had over the last 15, 20 years. And it's really this idea of building an environment of accountability while maintaining outcomes and culture. Right. And so what I mean by that, and I try to make it kind of self-explanatory, but essentially, I have found myself, and many times, and we were talking about this earlier, of being hired in and replacing somebody else that wasn't getting the job done, right? That wasn't meeting the expectation.
Yes.
And that can be a tough position to come into, because oftentimes what I also found was that person that wasn't meeting the expectation was sometimes liked and loved by the people now that I am leading.
Right.
And so how do you come into a position that expectations weren't met, create accountability with the team, get to know them, and still continue and grow the outcomes and continue to foster a thriving culture and environment?
Oh man. Okay, so I have to know, did you know you were going to be doing this when you were little?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know. I bet if you ask my parents, they might say, yep, yeah, we knew that he was going to be fixing things.
Okay.
We knew that he was going to be doing that. But I don't know. I've always been in the mindset, I think this is even translated to me as an adult, of kind of that protector mode. And I've always been the one that's stood up to individuals that need someone to stand up for them. And so in my mind, I think that translates to the business world and the idea that as long as I believe in what we're doing and I believe in the service or the product offering and the people that are doing it, I'm going to get behind that and I want to stick up for those people that are really there for the right reasons, right? That have real reasons to be there, that really want to help and that really want to move the organization and themselves and their team forward. So I think that kind of, that's how it translates in my mind, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense. So when you stand up for people who need help, are you sharing agency? Are you encouraging them and showing them how to stand up and have their own agency? Is this something about, because that's an interesting approach to the fixing things when you are allowing other people to share that space of fixing?
I think probably the first way that I do that is making sure that the people that we have on the team in this example are there for those right reasons and are worthy of being stood up for, that have that same mentality, that want to be better for themselves and are there for the right reasons. And so once I can identify that those individuals have that mindset, we're all on the same page, we all have similar ideas of where this wants to go, then it becomes very easy for me to jump in and say, I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader. I'm going to be right there behind you and probably not even behind you, right next to you, right? I want to figure this out together, which really kind of goes into my first point, which is hiring right. And so this is probably, it's such a cliche statement anymore, but I think we fall flat on this too often in corporate world or even outside of that, is that we just don't hire right. We're so preoccupied by filling seats that we don't really think about who we're putting in the seat.
Right.
And so
Ooh,
I go through a process where I create, depending on the organization and the steps that they've had before, I want to put multiple steps in my hiring process because I want to slow down that process. Because when I can slow down the process, I give space for thought, I give space for gut feelings. And then I also know that if I take the time, this kind of is a larger concept that plays out in my personal life and professional life. But when I take time in the beginning to really think through anything, I know that we can fly later on, right? So the idea is slow down now so we can speed up later.
We will return to Uncharted in a few moments. How you work on your business often means the difference between failure and success. When you commit to developing skills, increasing capacity for the unknown, and prioritizing your mission, you're taking action towards success. Find out more about how to fast-track your business at fasttrackyourbusinesstoday.com. Let's get back to Jess.
Okay, so I actually saw this happen at, of all places, a little league game of a whole bunch of kids. Okay, the person who is on the pitching mound, and so they're 10-year-olds and they just learned how to steal. Okay, so if you got on first base, you were on third base before the next batter got walked to first base. All right. So this is how, so the game, and stealing makes the game speed up. It creates pressure on that pitcher. And then what happened was I watched the catcher recognize what was going on all of those bases. And the catcher was like, I'm going to hold this a minute. I'm going to slow down a little bit. I know if I need to move fast or not, and helped the pitcher stay really focused so that there were a few less people that got all the way home because there were less walks and more strikes. Right. And so I think that is a really good point that I doubt this child was doing this, and I may be totally applying, wow, how cool of all my learning, I get to see this in this little league field. Let's be real about that too. But at the same point in time, when we manage that energy flow and recognize when can we get tripped up when it's going so fast, to your point, slowing down where you know it will help you, I think is key. And so with that in mind, and I'm thinking about, your example, or I might actually end up getting someplace else, which is, well, did you ever find a time things were going so fast? And how did you slow down in the middle of all of that energy going so fast?
Yeah, I love that example. What immediately came to my mind is, where's the catcher in your life, right? Where's
Yeah.
that catcher that's slowing things down for you? And how are you putting that in your path? How are you allowing that in your path? Because oftentimes it's there and then we just push it aside.
Right? We
So
do, don't we? The
yeah. And so
pressure's too big. I don't want to slow down, or I can't slow down.
the goal on the other side is too important, quote unquote. It's too, I need it now, that I couldn't possibly slow down to get there. I need to just blow past whatever's in my way to get there. And I think that's where mistakes are made. But to answer your specific question about how to really focus in and how to, or actually rephrase the question back for me. Well, I got
Sure,
stuck on
no problem. I know, right? Because there was a lot of stuff in that. Basically, when we all recognize the need to slow down, most of the time we're in this thing that might be controlling us, energy rise, pressure wise, and we need to slow down once things got really fast. What is, when you found yourself doing that, what do you do?
Okay, yeah. I think it's a learned behavior. A lot of things that I do these days anyways, of things that are learned behavior that I purposely put in my path, that I purposely have, I notice when things happen, right? I know there's triggers for me now because I've trained myself to say, wait a minute, I'm feeling in that particular instance, let's say I'm feeling rushed. I have the feeling that we're moving too quickly. And so that's a trigger for me to say, wait, we need to slow it down. And so then when I have that feeling, some of the things that I do is that I purposely give myself space. So I'll tell myself, I'm not making a decision on this for 24 hours. I'm going to sleep on it. That's oftentimes the thought that goes in my head, or that I say out loud to people, like, you know what? I don't want you to give me an answer right now. I want you to sleep on it. I want you to think about it and just kind of mull it over. And you know what's funny about that, Jess, is that actually when I do that, and I actually give myself that space, whether it be a day or a couple days, there are so many new things that come to light, typically in those scenarios within that time frame. I didn't make a snap decision, and then other things pop up. I mean, I've had instances where I'm like, you know what? I don't know if that's, for instance, in a hiring position, I don't know if that's the right hire. And so I'm going to think about it. I'm going to really mull it over. And within that time frame, they respond back to me and say, you know what, this isn't a good fit for me. Or they respond back to me and say, and they have these incredible ideas. And I'm like, wait a minute, now you just solidified, and I gave myself time to think about it. And now you've just solidified my decision-making. Or something else pops up, right? Something else comes into my sphere that because I'm just thinking about it, mulling it over, I'm opening myself up to the idea of being open to other possibilities, that I can see some of those other possibilities. And so I'm not blinded. I'm not putting the blinders on and saying I'm pushing past everything that's in front of me to get to the goal. I'm removing the blinders and giving myself the opportunity.
I hear a pause in there. You take a pause. When certain triggers happen and you recognize what those are, you stop.
And that's how I do that for me. And then
that's okay. That's all. But I'm a big believer in pauses, which is why I want to know about you, because your way of pausing will be different than mine. And all these people listening hear about mine all the time. Fair enough?
Yeah, absolutely. I just think it's never been a bad experience for me when I've given more time for thought and intentionality. In fact, a lot of the things that you mentioned in my introduction, I talk a lot about intentionality. And oftentimes, I'll pose the question, how are you giving yourself space to just think? I mean, we're in this world now that we have been conditioned to just go, go, go. And it's incredible to me on how we just stay on that track. We just stay there, and we think that that's what we have to do, and that's what the world is telling us. And there's certainly some payoffs there, because when you're go, 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 you can get recognition for that. To me, it's not the right recognition, but there's definitely recognition there. But for my life and what I have found, you learn this a lot too. We were talking earlier about kids. I have 3 kids. You have a son. And so we were talking about that. And this is never seen in more kind of real life than with kids. When you slow down with kids, the gems are just intense in a good way, right? They're just fulfilling. And so whenever I give myself space in my personal life and my professional life to slow down and really think through and pause, I've never come out of that and said to myself, well, that was a mistake. It's always been, I need to do that more often. Why am I not doing that? And you know how, and so I give you real life examples. What that looks like for me is that one of the ways is that I basically, Fridays are my day where I take no meetings. I take, you really use it for my deep work time. And so I plan out deep work in my life. And deep work for me could be really kind of pen to paper, really working through some projects. But also deep work for me could be get myself out of my environment, be completely alone, and think about new ways, new ideas, new things in my life. Or maybe there's something that that's really challenging me. And again, I don't differentiate between work and personal. To me, I need deep work thinking time for me, for my life, for all things that are about me. Because I don't come to my vocational work and then check who I am at the door, right? Like I don't walk in and start working with the individuals I work with and not take calls from my wife, right? Like, and so I am the person. And so I need to be thinking about myself as that whole person. Okay, I'll stop there because I could keep going, and I'll stop there.
Okay. I did not pay him to say any of that. I got to just say that right now. This totally was unprompted from the questions that we were asking in the conversation. I take Mondays, and in fact, Mondays, and I call it a present retreat. And there's dedicated time where, and I don't care when it happens in the day, that I do work on red direction. And then there's dedicated times during the day that has its deep work. But then the rest of the day is deep work of whatever else needs to happen. Sometimes it's parenting things. Sometimes it's planning a vacation because I can look forward to that. Sometimes it's all red direction. Sometimes it's I sit down and I read an entire book because that is what I'm craving. So to your point, Stan, I think that that's incredible. And that's why I said that, because it is, and I do it on Mondays. And then I also have just started, and you'll have to tell me if you have other things like this too. I like rhythms. And in the rhythms, what ends up happening is that if I don't do certain things, the rest of my day gets off. So I could be late to every meeting, but if I don't wrap up and get all the thoughts out of my head when I am ready to put my email away, to put my phone away and do something else, I carry all that stuff with me and it creates clutter and I'm not able to be present. And that's actually something that's really important to me, is how do I be present? And so I do that I actually do that every day. All 7 days of the week have some sort of an end. And so do you also have some sort of I'm going to call it a life cadence or a rhythm that you rely on that has points like that?
See, I told you that we were going to get along and that we thought along the same lines, because the answer to that is absolutely. And so I call them rituals. And so I have rituals that happen every morning, that happen every evening, that kind of are a cadence or kind of an alarm clock for me of things that are winding down or winding up, however you look at it. And I'll tell you right now, those rituals span from everything from making my bed every morning, because, and I'll tell you why I do that. I don't know if I've ever talked about this actually, Jess, but because I like getting into a made bed. Right. And so at the end of the day, when I lay down and I finish out my end of day ritual, I want that feeling of what it feels like to get into a made bed. Right. And so I add it to the morning ritual to make the bed. And so, and I know, but that gives me like that piece of, for me, getting into a made bed, that might sound silly, but I know that for me, that kind of helps me kind of wind down. I'm not, at the end of my day, I'm not trying to fumble around and get the sheet on and put all the stuff where it needs to go. I don't have to think about any of that. I just lay down. Right. And so, so it spans everything from making the bed, which I know is super exciting, all the way through batching my work. Right. And so, I mentioned Friday, but I also have kind of spots throughout the week. And typically on Monday, Monday morning all the way through about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's still that deep work time that I do a lot of that work. But then, conversely, Tuesday and Wednesday are my what I would call kind of project work, kind of vocational work. And so I'm all in, like, and my wife knows, like, don't book anything on Tuesday and Wednesday because I'm all in. And so I share my week with the people around me that mean something to me, that can kind of talk into me, not only so they can help me stay on task, but they can encourage me in that. And so they know what's happening. My wife knows that we are not planning anything on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. Like last night, she had a thing with her friends. She took the 3 kids. And she also knew that, like, she knows that I'm doing project work that day. So she actually helps me. She took the 3 kids out to a friend's house yesterday afternoon until yesterday evening. And it just, again, helped me. And I didn't have to have that conversation with her. She just knows, right? And so, yes, I have what I call rituals. I have different times throughout the week. I batch them. I love that you do that. I have seen such incredible success from it.
I'm glad. Me too. And I bet our successes have similarities, yet they're also probably incredibly different.
Yeah, and you know what? Can I make one other point on that?
You can.
I love sharing that with people too, because they'll say, I'll have, and I'm not shy of it either. People are like, hey, Dan, you know what? I'd love to connect with you on Friday. Can we chat on Friday? You go, you know what? Actually, I spend Friday in my deep work time. I don't take any meetings that day. And so a couple things happen there. One, they're like, oh, okay, no problem. We'll find another time. Like, it's never an issue, right? And then 2, what inevitably happens is what? What do you mean you do deep work on Fridays? What does that mean? Well, I would love to tell you about it.
That's exactly right.
And so, yeah, it's never, some people say, well, I can't like section off time on my calendar because what if people need me? Well, first of all, they don't. Let's get over the fact that they need us right now. And if it is an emergency, then of course I'm going to break away, right? But it's got to be an emergency. And if it's an emergency, they'll call you, right? They'll get a hold of you somehow. But most times in our lives, we don't have emergencies occurring all the time. And we can, and then it goes back to what we were saying earlier. If you're not giving yourself the space, then you're just going to stay in that busy cycle. You're going to stay in that. And what I've often heard it referred to as the hustle fallacy, right? That we're just constantly on the go. We're constantly on the go. So either you can kind of be in that vein and allow it to take you wherever it's going to take you, or you can stop it and get in control of it.
All right. You know what? We're going to continue this conversation in just a moment because I can't wait and I don't want to stop. And this is a quick reminder for Fast Track Business subscribers. You've got the entire interview and what's coming next in your True North dashboard. Pull this up in your private feed to watch or listen or read right from the website. We've been talking about boundaries. We've been talking about pausing. We've been talking about deep work. We've been talking about replacing somebody. Oh, I love this that I can't read my notes. I made this one in a special color. Replacing somebody who wasn't getting the job done, yet everybody loved. Now talk about a challenge. All of those things come from how we show up in the world, and our opportunities also come from how we're showing up in that world. And when we know that about ourselves, other people can meet us there, just as Dan was describing to us. So how you work on your business often means the difference between failure and success. Intentionally keep moving your business forward in the right direction, authentically, pragmatically, and resiliently. You owe it to your business.
You've been listening to Uncharted. Fast Track Your Business subscribers receive access to a vast set of resources, including extended conversations to this and other Uncharted episodes. Visit fasttrackyourbusinesstoday.com. Your preparedness and the right perspective is absolutely necessary when you find yourself somewhere uncharted. Special thanks to the Scott Treatment for production assistance.